COVID, I had to we used to have 5,000 square foot building with classrooms, instructors, and fly shop. And then COVID came along, and because I have a school in my name, Northwest School of Fly Fishing, I was shut down for 2 months by the state of Idaho. And then when they finally let us do what we do, we couldn't do any classes for months. So that's okay. It was time to kind of pare down, and so I moved to our third location on Fairview. I took a 3-year lease there, and I really like that. But as I'm getting older now, I just was plain tired of retail. I never liked retail. I was kind of forced into it. And so when my lease ran out, I decided to just do the 3 things that I really like to do and just call it semi-retirement. And of course, you know, when you retire, you're busier than you ever were before. So I have a small shop on the corner of.
Can you talk up or talk in the microphone?
I have a small shop in the corner of Northview and Northview Avenue and Cole Road, and that's going to be the final shop, so to speak. And what I do is basically 3 things now. I write, and I'm a teacher of fly fishing, and I've been teaching fly fishing for the last 40 years, and that will continue. But the venue is different, so I'm really teaching online. So a year ago, I started the Northwest School of Fly Fishing YouTube channel, so I can do 1 video and reach more people than I can in probably 5 years. And you might wonder why we did that before, because I had online the Virtual Fly Fishing Academy, which is what we were doing differently than YouTube. So the 3 things I'm really doing now is I'm helping anglers such as yourself become better anglers. Kind of full circle back into coaching fly fishing. I don't do any kind of beginning fly fishing anymore. However, I don't turn anybody that wants to become a beginning or learn to fly fish, I don't turn them down. They learn exactly the same thing as someone who's been fly fishing for 40 years. It's identical. So in essence, there's no such thing as beginning fly fishing. And I probably get a lot of kickback from the commercial business because you're just a beginner. So I'm currently working with guys right now and gals with 20, 30, 40 years of fly fishing experience, and I'm working with a few folks out there that have never touched a fly rod before in their life, and I teach them identically the same thing. I don't create this stuff; it's there. To teach someone beginning fly fishing is just not ethical on my part. So we don't do that, but we do it. If you follow what I'm trying to say. So really, teaching fly fishing is still there. I do it online. I am working with other people still, and I'm writing. So that's basically the 3 things that I'm doing, and I'll continue to do that. If I'm lucky enough to be 95 years old, I'll still be in that same place, still doing those 3 things. So that's where I am. Now, which brings us to where we are today. And where do we fly fish right now? The alternatives are well known. It's get a float tube and go float a river or float a lake somewhere. That's been the general thing forever. And spring and late spring, as you go to the Indian Reservation, Duck Valley Indian Reservation, and you fish those 3 ponds there, or lakes there, and you fish any other kind of lake or pond that you can find. And that's the way it's always been, and I became quite good at what we call still water fishing. And I had prams and electric motors and all that stuff. I was really into that stuff and became very, very good at the point where I was teaching it. I haven't done any still water fishing now probably for 10 years because I'm on rivers when nobody else is. There's only one river that you can really fish, and you really couldn't do that until recently, as of like yesterday, and that's the Wahi River. That was just too high to fish. Only guys like me can go up there and fish it, and that's because I've been fishing it before and nobody fished it. Yeah, that's another story, but know that river really well. I know you can fish the river really high. You just got to know a few things about the river and where to go. But now they're dropping the river down to like 750 cubic feet, and that's just the beginning. And that's going to be very fishable. Normally, in the last 10 years, you can fish that in the spring, and of course, everybody knows that. So, going on the theme of Barbara and the Payette River drainage, I'm kind of the guru on the Payette River drainage. I was raised fly fishing on a river. It's just like the South Fork Payette, and I'm really at home on that river. And I probably fish every square inch of that river from Grand Jean down to Banks, and then from Banks all the way up to Upper Payette. Like, I know the river system really, really well. I was on the South Fork of the Payette River on Sunday, and 4 miles upriver from the Deadwood River. So the South Fork of the Payette River, if you don't know, runs Highway 17, Banks to Loman Highway, and that merges into Highway 21. You turn left, you go to Canada, you turn right, you go back to Boise. So if you turn left, you're following the South Fork of the Payette River all the way up to the beginning of Banner Summit, and it goes over to Grand Jean, and then it goes to the backwaters. So where I am is right there where Highway 17 intersects Highway 21 in a little town called Loman. So when we look at the South Fork Payette, the South Fork of the Payette River is a freestone river, and it's really 2 rivers. Am I too loud?
It's just kind of
Okay.
going out.
All right. Well, that's not my fault. I'm trying to get it right. Okay. It's still 2 rivers, meaning there's a lower South Fork Payette and there's an upper South Fork Payette. And where that dividing line is where the Deadwood River flows into the South Fork of the Payette River. And that's about 4 or 5 miles from the Highway 21 intersection. So you have 2 rivers right there. You have the Deadwood River, and it flows into the South Fork of the Payette River. From that point down to Banks is the lower South Fork of the Payette River. The upper Payette River, or the upper South Fork of the Payette River, really runs from the Deadwood River upriver through Loman all the way into Grand Jean and the high country. So altogether, it's about 54 miles of river. So I was in Loman Sunday. So if you've ever been there, Highway 17 or the Banks Loman Highway ends in Loman, and it tees into Highway 21. And at that intersection, if you turn left in about 30 yards, you're going to cross a bridge, and that's Clear Creek. We call it Clear Creek for a reason. And the road, or frontage road, that follows Clear Creek is called Bear Valley Creek. And if you know anything about Bear Valley, or about Bear Valley Creek and Marsh Creek form the middle fork of the Boise, or middle fork of the Sandifer River. So in theory, you could take that road all the way up to the middle fork of the Sandifer River, where they put all the rafts in. Certainly, Bruce Meadows and Elk Meadows, it's probably the prettiest place anywhere I've ever been in Idaho. That road takes you all the way up there. It follows Clear Creek all the way up there. Of course, the river's high, the creek's high, and I was able to catch a couple of fish. But we weren't there very long. If you drive I think it's 9 miles from Loman as a campground, and you just go a few more miles, from there you can turn around and fish your way back. And we did that, and caught a few fish. And then we circled back down, and at the Deadwood River, we turned right on the Deadwood River. There's a dirt road that goes up 4 miles and stops. There's a gate there. And you can view the river there, and we were able to catch a couple fish in there. The whole time I'm filming and I'm teaching. I'm teaching to the camera, so I've set my camera and I'm doing these things. And then when that was done, we drove back down to the confluence, Highway 17, where the Deadwood River flows into the South Fork. So anytime a river flows into another river, it doesn't tee like that, it turns. So the current's going like that, and it forms an inside curve. And my buddy and I, together, we probably took 30 whitefish, nymphing. The fish I caught on Clear Creek and the fish I caught on Deadwood were on dry fly. And then we probably took 4 or 5 trout in that 10 to 12 inch stopped between the middle fork of the Payette River, which is Crouch. So from there all the way down to Banks is 9 miles, and in that 9 mile stretch, we stopped one place, and I probably took 15 trout in it. And I just looked at the river flows in the back. It's run about 2,000 cubic feet through there. So I don't let high water keep me at home.
So, question, in a high water situation, what we think is high water situation like that, where are you looking for fish?
Okay, first of all, nobody knows the South Fork Payette River better than I do. Fishing game come and ask me questions about it. In terms of fishing, I mean, I was raised on the river. I'm probably fishing it 8-9 times a year. I just love that river. So I really know well. So that I have that advantage.
Yeah.
Meaning, I don't. You would drive up there and just fish the river. I'm driving up there and going to this point, and when I'm done fishing that point, I'm going to drive down the road to that point. And that's 34 years of learning the river.
And what was that point? I didn't.
How about a shopping on that?
It makes me think that, Mike, you said this on a presentation on the South Fork of the Boise years ago at Expo. How do you know where to fish a river? Pick a section of the river and fish it and fish it and fish it and fish it and fish it.
Wow,
And then pick the next section
Yeah.
of the river.
Exactly. So we'll just leave the South Fork for a little bit and go to. We'll leave the South Fork pit a little bit. And what was your first name? Janet. And that was a great one. A lot of people come to me to know where to fly fish. And one of the reasons I'm here tonight is because I want to tell you where to fly fish. And if I have any criticisms at all, is you tell everybody all the secret places. Whatever you do, don't tell Mike where you're fishing because he's going to tell everybody else. Well, I'm guilty as charged. What am I going to do? Take this to the grave? Why should I do that? It's the most selfish thing on earth. So getting back to that point there, when people come to me and they want to learn the South Fork of the Boise River, well, again, nobody knows that river better than I do. I own a drift boat for 25 years, and I was on that river constantly. I fished that river from Deadwood, from Anderson Ranch Reservoir all the way down to almost Arrow Rock. I know every square inch of that river. I know it really, really well. For you to know that river really, really well, what you have to do is take out a map, Google map. If you look at that section between Anderson Ranch Reservoir, where the tailwater section begins, all the way down to Danskins, like 14 miles. And there's two official bridges there. There's Cow Creek Bridge and Danskin Bridge. Danskin Bridge is the end of the road. So from Danskin Bridge downriver, that's all private property. The only way you can fish that is to walk down the river or float it. So you have two bridges there. You have Cow Creek Bridge and Danskin Bridge. It's about 4 miles between those two bridges. So what I'm trying to make here, if you've never fished the South Fork, you're going to be like everybody else. You're going to come into the dam, and you're going to drive down the river, and you're going to get sucked in somewhere. And when you're all done, you haven't learned anything. You don't know where you're at. Jan, and what I'm telling you is that if you want to learn to fish that river really, really well, you only fish between those two bridges. So there's two sections from the dam to Danskin Bridge. You can say there's two sections to that river. There's Cow Creek Bridge up to the dam, and there's Cow Creek Bridge down to Danskin. So from Cow Creek Bridge up to the dam is 10 miles, and from Cow Creek Bridge to Danskin is only 4 miles. So what I'm telling you is you go and fish between those two bridges, Cow Creek and Danskin, and you drive your vehicle all the way down to Danskin Bridge and view the whole river, and then start fishing your way to Cow Creek. When you hit Cow Creek, you turn around and do it again. And you do that for 3 or 4 years. And you start learning where all these spots are. But when you go home, you don't go out Cow Creek. You don't go out Prairie Road, which takes you out to the highway, or across Cow Creek Bridge. You drive out to the dam, and now you're just looking at the river from that point on. reverse in the spring. I mean, sorry, it's the reverse in the winter. See, in the winter, you don't fish the lower river. You only fish from the dam down to Cow Creek Bridge, typically down to even Indian Rock. It's the opposite.
I didn't mean to sidetrack you from the
Well, but that's
VM,
very
but I
good.
just thought that was great information. Pick a section, even like you're saying here, the Deadwood River up to Highway 21, or
Become an expert on a section of the
Right.
river, and then build from there. If you just ping pong all over the place, you have no data points anywhere, and you really don't learn these things. And I can say that for almost any river. That was a very good point. And again, I'm going to move on because I only have so much time. I think the last time I spoke here, I said to the folks here, and some of you may remember this, you need to know about the Little Wood River. It's unfished. So I want to go into detail about that because you have a trip to Silver Creek. What I do is I'll go to Silver Creek, I'll camp out there at Point of Rocks, where I like to be, and I'll fish Silver Creek in the morning. Well, 30 minutes away is the Little Wood River. Now, the Little Wood River, this is the neat thing, and you're going to appreciate this. This is worth your effort just to come here tonight. Christine knows this. If you get on USGS, River Flows, Idaho, and you look up, say this is, say it's August. If you look on USGS Little Wood River, there is zero water in the Little Wood River. Zero. And no one's going to fish it. Or there's 30 cubic feet. And nobody wants to fish that. It's in the desert. It's all hot. Nobody's going to do that. All these places I'm talking about, I have on video. I don't tell you. So if you're looking to see what the Little Wood River is, go to Northwest School of Fly, search Northwest School of Fly Fishing on YouTube, and then get on my channel and find the video, Finding High Desert Rivers. And you get a drone shot of the whole Little Wood River. Okay, and that's what you'll see, because the Little Wood River is a tailwater river. It comes out of Little Wood Reservoir. And the wizard behind the curtain, water is very valuable, and they're not going to let a drop of water go unless they can make money on it. If water goes out, they have to make money. And if the ranchers stop irrigating, they're turning off the dam down to a trickle. So no one's going to fish that. However, Silver Creek, which you're going to be fishing in June, yeah, it's 22nd of June. You might see me there. I might be there too. This is what I'll be doing on there. If you look on the same USGS Idaho River Flows and look at the same section that has the Little Wood River, just a few spots down is Silver Creek Peak. And for example, today it's at 140 cubic feet. Well, the Little Wood River and Silver Creek merge. Yeah, they merge. And Silver Creek ceases to exist. It becomes the Little Wood River. So you may be having 0 cubic feet in the Little Wood, but you're getting 160 cubic feet of Silver Creek. If you don't know anything about Silver Creek, well, Silver Creek's one of the top artesian springs in the United States. Probably in the top 10. Here in Idaho, probably number 1. In the Northwest, probably number 3. What does that mean? Well, artesian water is 250 to 300 years old. This is the most fertile water that God's created. And it creates a biomass. And a biomass creates aquatic insects. And trout eat aquatic insects. So if you're going to the Little Wood and there's no zero flows coming in, that means you've got 35, 40 miles of some of the most fertile water God ever created. And it just so happens that right where those two, Silver Creek and Little Wood, come together, just south of Cary, that now becomes BLM land. And you can look that up. You can get on Google Maps. You can go right over to Cary. You can find Little Wood. You can find Silver Creek. You can see where it comes together right on the map. And if you just go a mile or two below that, you're going to see a bridge. That's Preacher's Bridge.
What bridge?
Preacher's Bridge. And if you're driving from Bliss, which is on Highway 84 freeway, if you turn off at Bliss, it's a pitchfork. There's Highway 30, Highway 84, and Highway 26. Highway 26 goes north to Gooding, Shoshone, Richfield, and Cary. So you're from Richfield, you're just following the Littlewood that I'm talking about. So if you just go to the last bridge before the confluence, that's Preacher's Bridge. It's about a third of a mile from the highway. And there's no, if you're heading towards Cary, or you're heading north, there's no road sign. But if you're coming in from Silver Creek, there'll be a road sign. My point is that if you get on, there's internet service the whole length of the, if you just get on your map system and you pin that, and as you're driving down the highway, you can see you're getting closer and closer and closer. Take a right-hand turn. If you find that video on YouTube, you'll see my truck parked at Preacher's Bridge. And the last video I did, I'm about ready to load one tomorrow. The one I did that's recent, the most recent one, is I'm on the Littlewood River. I'm on the Littlewood River. And the fish are wild. And if you're going to fish it, you want to start at Preacher's Bridge. Now there's a management area there called Bear Trap. Bear Trap was donated by Jack Hemingway after he retired from the board here at Fish and Game. He gave that to the state of Idaho under certain conditions. One of them was that you're not to name it after him, so they named it Bear Trap. It's to the state, and the state has deemed that marvelous catch and release. Now I have fished that river probably 30 years or more, and up until recently I've never seen another fly fisherman on it. A young man came into the shop last November, one of the rare young guys that come in. He came in and I was talking to a couple of gentlemen and he looked at me and smiled. Well, that's Cody. I taught Cody how to fly fish when he was 17. He's 28 now. He walked in and said, "Where?" He sat down. He just smiled at me. When I was down with the gentleman, I looked over. I said, "What are you smiling at?" He goes, "I've been fishing the Littlewood from August till now. Nowhere else." I said, "How many anglers have you seen there?" He goes, "None." And it's that close to Silver Creek. You have that. That's 2 hours from Boise. Malad River right now is at 170 cubic feet. And that's right there at the Idaho Power flow station, which is about 250 yards from the Snake River. And that's where you fish it. And there's the Malad, M-A-L-A-D. And right now there's an afternoon between probably right this time of year, probably noon to 3, is a size 18 blue winged olive hatch. And if you go to, again, I'll refer you quite often to the YouTube site. I have a YouTube called The Do's and Don'ts of Drop Shot Casting. And watch that video. The opening scene is of a gentleman nymph fishing there, and you'll see the bridge there. That'll tell you where I'm fishing. So if you just Google map that, you'll see the little bridge there. I'm just downstream from there. And I've probably been there 3 times before they released the water there. I haven't been back since. I just take my chair, my lunchbox, and my thermos, and I just fish that one little 25-yard section all morning. So the Malad is pretty special. There's also, if you go to my YouTube channel, there's a whole YouTube on fly fishing the Malad River. There's also a YouTube on fly fishing the North Fork of the Payette River. North Fork of the Payette River is probably one of the finest rivers to fly fish in Idaho, southwest Idaho, certainly, for about 6 weeks a year. You'll find me there constantly. You got to wait till they drop the river at Cascade Reservoir. So just so you know, I mean, I think fly fishing 24/7, and I've been married for 45 years. I think fly fishing 24/7.
Stop.
Now it's gone. Oh, push. Now it's gone. So what I mean by that is I'm constantly looking at the river flows. I have 2 apps on here. I use USGS daily. I'm constantly looking at what our river flows are doing. I don't fish any river unless I know what the flows are. You know, you got to do that because it helps you make the right decision on where to go. So, for example, I was double checking the flows back there during the meeting, and the Littlewood at below Cary has 280 cubic feet in it, and Silver Creek has 120. You do the math. That's like 420 cubic feet. Yeah, that's fishable. I'm wading that river. I'm wading it wet. I got shorts and sandals on. I'm wading that river. And you can too. I mean, that's doable. Anything over that, anything over 500, I wouldn't probably drive up there and do it.
I was just gonna ask what the ideal band is for water.
It all depends on the angler. I was raised fly fishing. My earliest memories of life are on the river. Learned how to swim in the most dangerous river in California. There's been over 500 people have died and drowned in the river. But back in the 50s and 60s, your parents said go. And I had 2 older brothers that were in charge. So at a very early age, I was wading rivers, and I'm really, 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 really good at it. And I don't know anybody that can wade a river better. I'm raised on it. I don't care. I don't know anybody, nor have I met anybody that can wade a river better than me. I fear no river. For about 30 minutes. Then I waded like a 68-year-old man. I can't wade at all. So I'm particular about that. So the point I'm trying to say is, depends on the flow, you know, your youth and how strong you are, and rivers and whatnot.
So were you waiting on the Payette when you said you were just
Never.
out there fishing?
I never waded.
Oh, okay, just checking on that, because there are a lot of beginners here, and they may think, oh, he's standing. on the
No, I
riverside.
never waded the Payette River.
Okay.
There's no reason to wade it.
Just to be clear. but
Well,
not
yeah, I mean,
everybody understands it.
let me put it this way, I'm wading wet. What I mean by that is I'm wearing, there's a video I'm putting, this will help you. I'm loading a video tomorrow. It's called, I think it's called How to Wade Wet. So I have 3 different ways I wade wet. Wade wet is when you're not wearing waders. And I never wear waders, unless it's so cold I can't. So typically from really end of April to probably almost the end of November, I'm not even in waders. However, I am wading smartly. And there's a reason why I don't wade wet. I mean, there's a reason why I don't wear waders. So there's 3 ways I do it. I have 3 different types of shoes I wear. And I never wade any river without a wading staff. I've used a wading staff since I was in my mid-40s. To wade a river without a wading staff is stupid. It's a 3rd point of contact versus 2. You always wade with the staff in front of you, never here. Because your 3rd point's right here. And how you're going to fall is when you're wading a river, when you kick a rock. Now you only have 1 point of contact, because this one's useless. So I hold a wading staff like you would hold a sword. I just stick it in like that, and I put it right here, and I walk toward it. The boots I wear, when I do wear waders, they have steel bars on them, so I don't slip. So if you do a lot of wading, especially me, I wrote a book called I wrote a book called On the Water, Memoirs of an Old Fish Hole. There's a lot of fish stories. I fish pretty much all the rivers. And they have a slime to them. And it doesn't matter if you're wearing felt or you're wearing sticky rubber, it's not going to do you good. So I wear bars on mine. It's my preference. I wear some sort of steel. Problem with those wading boots is they're extraordinarily heavy, and they're like having a 15-pound weight on each leg, slippery, that's when you get dangerous. The second, getting back to the South Fork of the Paya, the second type of shoe I wear is a really high-end, it's like $180 pair of Merle hiking shoes for backpacking. And they're solid nylon. So water goes in and out. They dry like in 10 minutes. And they have your typical sticky rubber vibram soles. That's what I wear on the South Fork Paya River, because it's like your shoes are like geckos on rocks. I can walk through a river, maybe ankle deep, because I can't hop it anymore. I can't do this anymore. So now I just walk, and I have these shoes. So they grip the rocks really well. And I don't like to hop rocks, because if I can walk between them, I'm going to do that. And if there's water in them, I'm not going to walk around the water if it's only ankle deep. I'll just walk right through. And then I'm just going to be, these shoes are dry. I don't wear socks. I wear booties. I wear surf booties. So if you've ever surfed, they're for surfers. And they have a really thin nylon sock, but a really good sole. Those go in those shoes. And that keeps my feet from rubbing on the rocks between the sandals and that. And now I can just wait around and get my feet wet, and they're all going to dry. And the final one, and probably the one I prefer the most, is I wear Keen's wading sandals, but I use goat head spikes on them. And you can order goat head spikes. In the video, I'll show you a picture of it. And how I do it is I put them around the perimeter of the sandal and around the perimeter of the heel. And then I get the benefit of the rubber when I'm walking on rocks, and I get the benefit of the claws. And how I install them is I buy a little tube of Loctite and a driver, because they're hex, and I just screw them in with Loctite. And I just toss them in. Now I'm not going to slip at all. So there's certain ways you can be safe on the South Fork. I never waded. That river's too dangerous to wade. And of course, the Deadwood River is very low right now. It's at 50 cubic feet at the reservoir, probably 120 down at the confluence. And it's the same thing. I wear the sandals out there. So that would be a very informative video. All those videos I do are designed to be informative. It's called Northwest School of Fly Fishing. I'm not there to entertain. I'm there to teach. I would highly recommend that you subscribe to that channel. And then if you're going in the Hagerman area like you are, you have there's 4 spring creeks right there, all probably within 5 or 10 minutes of the crow flies. Certainly where you're going to be staying at the RV park, you could go right through the north end of Hagerman, out to the south end of the state park there, and you can fish Billings Creek. There's a trail, and there's also a state highway. The state built I think a 50-spot campground right on Billings Creek. I'm not too sure if it's open yet, but it'll show you the campground on Google Maps. You just go into the interagency, right where the interagency is, and it drives right down to right there at the creek. Before that was there, that was all private property, and you had to walk the trails and fish that. That's really good. Certainly Riley Creek. I have videos of Riley Creek throughout I think I put one out last month where I'm fishing on Riley. You can find that. And then if you go to my website, there's a button called Video Log and Angler's Rib Journal. If you go to the Rib Journal, you'll find an article I wrote called Good Old Riley Creek. And Riley Creek is right there between the state and the federal hatcheries, right off Highway 30, right before you hit the Snake River. And I fished 2 areas there. I fished the federal, I dry fly fished the federal, and I nymph fish the state side from the Quonset Hut down to Riley Creek Falls, which flows into, and I can never remember not catching fish there. So there's lots of places down in Hagerman, and there's certain Ritter Springs, if you go to Thousand Springs, they're in the middle of a blue winged olive hatch. I just fish right there in the park. And you'll catch some fish there. And then there's another spring creek not too far from there. I can't remember the name of it off my hand. And then certainly Bruno River will come of age here in another month. And that's not too far from where you're staying at Bruno State Park, which you can't fish because it's too high right now. So I mean, these are areas. People will say to me, "Well, that's too far for me to drive to Hager." It's an hour and 20 minutes to the Malad River. It's an hour and 25 minutes to the South Fork. It's an hour and a half to the Waihe River. They don't think anything about doing that, but they won't go there. And as far as the South Fork of the Payette River, I fished that river 9 times last year. I didn't see a single fly fisherman on that river. I fished that river for 21 years before I saw another fly fisherman. I knew the guy. It's hard. I'm hard pressed to find some. If I see someone fly fish, I usually know that it's just not fish. And I'm on record saying this. If the Payette River drainage was an hour from Phoenix, Arizona, it would be considered one of the top trout rivers in America. The fact that it's squeezed between the Waihe River drainage and the Boise River drainage, it just gets ignored. There's been articles written that there's no trout in the North Fork of the Payette River from Payette Lake and McCall up to the headwaters. There's no trout in there. I've read the articles, and I didn't fish it because of that. And no one fishes that river, but it's full of trout. You just got to know where to go. I drove into, I was camped there at Payette Lake at Northwest Passage, just right there at the top of Payette Lake, on the state park side, on a campground on the North Fork of Payette River, right off of Warren Wagon Road. I was camped there with the wife. And I rolled into the campground, I was recognized. A guy comes up to me and says, and he comes up to me after I parked the trailer, and says, "Hi," and I asked him how the fishing was. He says he's been here for 2 days and hasn't got a single fish. And I said, "What fly are you using?" He shows me. I go, "You don't use that." So I told him exactly where to go. Between here and here, you can't miss it. Here's a fly. And he said, "Do you have another one?" I said, "No, you only get one." And the reason I said that is there's no brush around. There's no trees, no brush. It's all granite. And so my wife and I, we set up camp, and we're enjoying around the campfires. Around 7 o'clock at night, he rolls in, and he walks up to me, and he has a big smile. Took 15 trout.
What fly?
You can only buy it one place.
Northwest Fly Fishing?
Yeah, it's called the Annihilator. It's a Dave Hughes fly. Dave Hughes has written lots of books on fly fishing, and Dave Hughes is an Oregon guy. He's written all the etymology stuff, Western. That's Dave Hughes. That's his fly. He tied it. It's not a commercial fly. Yeah.
You did North Fork between Payette Lake and Upper Payette Lake?
Yep. Well, Upper Payette Lake is the headwater. There's no river beyond that. Yeah, it's just a big marsh.
As opposed to coming out of Payette Lake.
Well, the whole river, the whole North Fork of the Payette River is full of trout. Just got to time it right. You're watching the river flow.
What flows are you?
Well, right now, for example, from Cascade Reservoir all the way down to, say, Horseshoe Bend, it's unfishable, really. It's at 1,700, I looked at. And the reason why it's unfishable is because that river is very narrow. So it's very narrow and extraordinarily deep. So the more water in it, the deeper it gets. It doesn't get much wider, and you can't get your flies down to where the trout are. So you have to wait till it goes down. And the wizard behind the curtain at Cascade Reservoir has to keep it high because by law they have to use that water for the salmon recovery, as well as agriculture. So really that water's for the Columbia River Gorge. And a lot of other politics. So, but they do shut it off, and they usually shut it off around the end of October. And from that point until the time change, That's one of the best rivers to ever fish. I'll tell you what fly to eat. A size 8 rubber leg.
But the upper North Fork, between the lakes.
Between upper and,
Is there a flow that's best?
it's just the summer flow. There's, that's basically comes, that river is not governed by a dam, meaning there's a lake there, but they've just put a levee in there to make the lake a little higher. They don't really control the flow there. So it's like any other freestone river, it's just naturally going to go down. But where I fish it is really, I'll tell you, if you drive from McCall to Upper Payette Lake, if you continue on, it's pretty fast. You're doing 55 miles an hour, 60, and the road goes all the way up to Bergdorf, and right where it turns to gravel road, that's the turnoff for the hot spring. Okay. Well, what we're talking about is if you're driving that road between Upper Payette Lake and Payette Lake, you're going to see a sign that says, "Welcome to Payette National Forest." That's usually a landmark to begin fishing. And you're really fishing between the lake and there. So you're in the canyon, so to speak. So the river's really going downhill. And you don't want to fish the river where it flattens out where the moose live. And that's going to flow all the way into the west shore and into the lake where the campground. You want to stay up that way. Yeah. And it's simple, dry fly. Keep your fly. So what I told this gentleman, I said, whatever you do, keep this fly dry. And matter of fact, there's a YouTube video on this. I shot a YouTube video up there on this, and I'm standing on. So there's between Payette Lake and Upper Payette Lake, there's only one bridge that crosses the river. I'm standing on that bridge. I'm doing this video. I'm telling you how to fish a freestone river with a dry fly. Don't make these mistakes. As I hand this fly to this guy, I said, whatever you do, make sure that this fly stays on top of the surface or on the mirror. If not, you're not going to catch any fish. So that evening he told me, he goes, "You're right. All the fish I caught," he took 16. All the fish he caught, the fly was high and dry. He said, when that fly got wet, I didn't get a single take. So these are really tricks of the trade. So, and not so much for that river, but for any freestone river, you want to make sure that your fly is on the mirror and not in or under the mirror. It's very, very important. However, there are still a lot of streams and creeks all over that are unfished, that are full of trout. I just talked to Clear Creek. A young man that ties flies for me a year ago, I told him about the Clear Creek. And his wife is going out of town taking all 4 of the kids. He's got 4 days to himself, so he thought he'd go up Clear Creek. And he went all the way in there. He took 45 trout. Yeah. Wild trout. At that point, it doesn't matter where you fish. Just find a spot and start fishing. But there's just a lot of streams and creeks running all over the place that are just full of trout. And you just got to go and experiment and hike in there and do that. There's no mystery. Just so that you can have a template or something to set your own view of the timing of things. I've been an avid fly fisherman for going on 60 years. I was raised fly fishing. And I've lived up here well over 30 years. And I know I live and breathe fly fishing. I'm always fly fishing. And I'm one of those wanderlust guys that just wants to see what's around the next bend. I want to fish them all. I used to teach a class at BSU as Where to Fly Fish in Idaho. And it was 3 nights. Northern, Southwest, and Eastern Idaho. And why do you do that? Well, I do it because I want to go fish there. I want to go see what it's all about. So I have a good view and understanding of what we have here. Certainly the Wahoo River. I fished a whole season on the Wahoo River, not seeing a single angler on it. Every weekend. No one knew that Oregon Fish and Game put brown trout in there. No one, not even I. It's accidental. So that goes with that question. You have the Hawaii River, you have the South Fork of the Boise River. You have those rivers available to you. So to help you a little bit, just so that you understand, from about the second week in February to the end of May, I spend all my time in the Hagerman area. Bruna, South, Littlewood, the Malad, the Snake River, Sand Creek, Ritter. Yeah, I fish them all. I'm an avid golfer, so I'll take my clubs with me. And I play golf like I fly fish. I never play the same course again. And I'll fish a river and I'll find another one to fish. So that's kind of gives you an idea of how I do it. I don't need to or have a desire anymore to float to. Nothing wrong with it. But I know I can find somewhere where I can fly fish in a river where I prefer. And there's plenty out there. There's desert rivers out there that are full of fish. Just gotta find them. Jarbridge, Nevada, is another one. It's full of trout. And the list goes on. Okay, that's enough to keep you busy probably for the next 10 years.
Mike, what is the highest, most northern river or lake that you have fished?
Oh my goodness, way up in Canada, yeah. I mean, I used to, I've been self-employed since I've been to Idaho.
What about like the Sandpoint, Coeur d'Alene area?
Oh, way up in Canada, way up past there, yeah.
Okay, so where's good places up that way? Like if you-
No, you're talking to the wrong guy now. You need to get up there and that's a little bit, I have a 2-hour circumference. And if I go outside 2 hours, I'm spending the night.
So all these spots you just listed as far as the second week of February to May, do you continue fishing those throughout the summer?
No.
Or do you go to,
No, as soon as I get up the mountains, I'm gone from the mountains.
do you do the glacier lakes up around Sawtooth, or where do you go in the mountains?
I'm an avid backpacker. I've been backpacking since I was probably 4 years old. Eagle Scout, my boy, everything. I took my son backpacking. When we moved up here, we wanted to have a backpack all the way back in there. I no longer backpack. I gave him all my gear. But I highly recommend it. I know those backcountries like the back
You
one.
backpack.
Yeah, there's so many places. Backpacking is in Idaho is unlike any other place. Yeah, I highly recommend. I don't do it anymore. I'm only getting a little up there in years.
Did you backpack into the Franklinburg?
Oh, yeah, all over that place. Oh yeah, there's fish all over the place. Yeah, they're jumping out of the creek in your hand. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you go places. I mean, if you just go to if you're driving up Highway 21, like you're going to Stanley and Salmon River, you're going to go up Banner Summit, and you drop down Banner Summit, and you're going to have two major left-hand turns there. One's Bruce Meadows, and one I think is Seafoam. If you turn left on Bruce Meadows, it's going to take you out to the Bruce Meadows and the road to the Middle Fork, the famous Middle Fork where they wrap, and where I fish. Okay. Well, there's a creek there. It's called Bear Valley Creek. You're going to follow Bear Valley Creek. There's a campground called Fur Campground. If you just turn into a Fur Campground, there's a footbridge that crosses the river or the creek. Well, if you go past that to the next one, I think that's Seafoam. I'm not sure, but there's a Boy Scout camp there. And there, if you turn left right there, if you go down, and the road is going to fork, you take the left fork, the road's going to go down about a mile, stop at a campground. If you take that park right there, and you walk that trail, it takes you to Marsh Creek. And if you walk Marsh Creek for 5 miles, you run into Bear Valley Creek. And that is the beginning of the Middle Fork of the Salmon River. So I've been hiking on that before and been passed by 80-year-old ladies. It's flat as a board, except maybe a little rise as you drop down into the Middle Fork. So typically what we used to do is hike on in there. Now you have 3 rivers or three different bodies of water to fish. I've gone in there to fish the Middle Fork and never did. I just catch it and cutthroat out of Marsh Creek. Other times I've hiked in, it's called a big hole. There's a big hole in the river. That's where all the steelhead salmon gather. I've hiked in there, dropped my pack, set up a campground, and walked another 3 or 4 miles down the middle fork and just fished my way back there. I mean, that's Frank Church.
Big hole on Marsh Street.
It's called Marsh Creek. Yeah. So, I mean, it's endless, the places that you can go and fish and just hike. Hiking is just, I mean, there's no other, I've hiked all over. My son's done the PCH. I mean, there is just so much we have here that is unknown to many of the backpackers. I'm just too old to do it now. I'd rather play golf. Not that I'm too old, it's just, I don't want to walk that 5 miles. Everything here is up. There's only one trail I know that goes down.
But then you have to come back up to go home.
Right. I think that's Blue Lake.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the only one I've ever known that goes down. Everything in Idaho is up. Yeah, just, my motto is, it hurts, I don't want to do it anymore. All right, again, I mean, you keep talking to me and I'll throw more out there. Any other questions?
How about that, you talked about the Littlewood, but how about that section of Silver Creek that is like all BLM land, kind of between where we fish in Silver Creek and the Littlewood? I've always been curious about that stretch.
Yeah, that's, you're talking about from Peekaboo down.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is, yeah, it all goes through private property, but but there is a campground there called Priest Rapids, full of trout. And it's wonderful. I highly recommend you go there. And you should see the signs there, and you should pull in there. And from the campground up is private property, and from the campground down is public, but it's in a little canyon. And it's not like Silver Creek you think. You're like on a freestone river. There's boulders and rocks and things. The trout are all in there. Just throw some dry flies out there, and they'll snap at them.
What's the name of the campground?
Priest Rapids. There's a book I know out there. It's called I own it. There's a book on Silver Creek. It has all this information on it. And then eventually we'll flow down to Highway 21 and into. I think it's fairly open from there all the way down to Highway 26, and then it goes into private property somewhere in there, and then it pops out again with a little wood on BLM land. How am I doing on time?
8:10, 8:12.
Questions?
On a lot of these creeks that are smaller, is there a certain size range of fly
Yeah.
you would use?
On almost any freestone river, I don't use any fly larger than a 16. Because typically in freestone rivers, the trout are smaller. And I see guys out there throwing these big hoppers out there, it's just, it's crazy. I keep it pretty small. Even the hoppers I use are fairly small. Because I want that small fish to be able to put that whole fly in. I'm more, and you should be, more concerned about keeping my fly on the mirror than anything else. And the best way to do that is use your liquid floating and your dry shake.
And your dry what?
Dry shake. There's 2 bottles of it right out there. I walked in, went right to the dry shake.
Have you fished over at Henry's Lake?
Oh yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. Henry's Fork, it begins right there at Henry's Lake. And then you have the springs, they join, and then.
On the lake itself, do you do dry flies or is it?
No. It's rare that I use dry flies. I only use dry flies on lakes when I see them rising on the surface. And then they're eating pyramids. It's like taking candy from a baby. Yeah. Anytime you see fish on the surface, they're easy to catch. If you have a fork.
No, we'll be there next weekend.
Yeah. So there's 2 types of fly shops. There's There's 2 types of fly shops. There's gear shops, what we have here. They just want to sell you gear. And there's what we call destination shops. That means they make their living right there on the river. They have the flies you need. You're not going to find any flies for the Henry's Fork here in town. I mean, Henry Lake. But if you go up to Last Chance, they have everything you need. That's a destination. Those shops right there, they have it all. You can't get that anywhere. And one of the reasons I sell flies is because you couldn't go and buy flies that you needed. So I'll sell them. A lot has changed in the last 15 years. So.
You have a good
hatches are probably the easiest of all. They've been hatching the same way for 1 billion years. There's no secrets. Best to answer your question, for example, if you want to know what's hatching when on Silver Creek or the Big Wood River, just Google search hatch chart for Silver Creek. It's going to give you a linear chart of the January through February, and then on the left-hand column, it's going to list every aquatic insect in the river, and it's going to give you a graph of when that's happening. Yeah. They're not always that accurate, but it's going to give you an idea.
Good for planning,
Yeah, and the real rule is if you go into a destination, like Peekaboo Anglers is a destination location. You know, if I'm going to fish Silver Creek, I don't even do anything until I stop at Peekaboo Anglers. I used to know everybody in it, and I walk in with a $20 bill. Give me some flies. I don't know anybody that owns more flies than I do. Seriously. I'm sure there's a lot. I just don't know them. But I walk in there and lay a $20 or $30 down and say, give me some flies. What do I need to know here? And they're going to be very forthwith. I want to know when, what time of day, where, and what fly. Even a guy like me. And I want to know. And I'll pay for that. So it's like an expected bribe. Yeah. And then when you go to a destination shop, you lay $30 in. I mean, you know the guy you're talking to probably hasn't fished there in 3 weeks. If you look on their fish report, it's probably 6 weeks old. Yeah, yeah. So destination fly shops, these guys make a living on the water, and they know what they're doing. And I always listen to what they say. So if I hire a guide, I may be able to fish circles around that guide, but I'm going to do exactly what he tells me to do. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. That guy knows that river like I know our river. So I'll just listen to him for about an hour. Then typically I'm on them oars and he's fishing. Questions? So a lot of this stuff then is maybe foreign to many of you. I don't think there's any secret places anymore, ever, because there's a thing called Google Maps and the internet. There's nothing secret. So when I want to know about it, I'm really good on websites, Facebook, all the social media. I'm really good with that stuff. I've had to learn it the hard way. But the tools out there are just phenomenal. I mean, the satellite images you get of these places are incredible.
I do have a question, Mike. Okay, so on your YouTube videos, do you tell?
No.
Well, yeah, so that's the problem. All this out there, you don't need to.
Well, there's an unwritten rule is what you don't want to do.
They just see this beautiful creek. Well,
yeah, there's an unwritten rule that you don't do.
tell.
You don't do that. And I respect that.
Yeah.
So if you just email me, Mike, where are you? And I get a lot of.
I don't need a pin.
Yeah, just tell me where you're at.
The name of the creek
Yeah.
you're on.
I have to tell you, you're not bothering me when you do that. But it's an unwritten rule that when you do something like that, there's certain things you do that. I mean, I could say I'm on the Wahi River, and let me tell you about the Wahi River. Let me tell you about the South Fork Boys. Everybody knows that. You know, there's nothing I'm telling you that nobody else doesn't know. But when we're talking about the little wood, little places that are valuable out there, I will certainly tell all of you. But I don't want the whole mass. I don't want the people in Australia flying out. There's a little wood.
So, yes, I have watched a local kid who does YouTube videos, fly fishes, and he's been putting out lately some fly fishing videos of creeks and little rivers he's fishing at that are fishable right now. They're not blown out. They're not. And and of course he doesn't say where he's at. He just says one of the most beautiful little creeks I've ever fished in, and he was catching tons of fish, and so he might be at the little Bigwood or.
It could be any number of places, but I always tell you where I'm fishing when you ask.
Well, of course people in comments are asking, where is this, where is this, where is this? All our rivers are blown out,
Yeah,
where is this? And he never responds with.
A lot of people will ask, in my videos, my intro has my website on it, and I'll get contacted, or I'll ask them to contact me, and then
So
I'll
if
tell
they
them.
really wanna know for serious, they have to email you and ask.
Mhm, yeah.
You're not gonna post that on your YouTube video for, like you said, people in Australia to know.
Well, it's just common courtesy, it's just
Yeah.
not done in the business, yeah.
You just need to go to the store
Do your
for
research,
$100 and say,
you know.
"I'm gonna go fish."
I've been doing my research and I've been putting time in. No, I'm not gonna tell you where I just found my favorite hole.
That's true.
Get out there and do your research.
I
It's-
love to watch these YouTube videos because
Sorry.
my
Well,
knees are in
yeah.
a condition where I can't go to them anyway.
Somebody will come in and, say, show me how to, so I need you to help me out on the South Fork Boise River. I'll sit down and we'll bring up Google Maps and I'll take them and I'll say, this is where you need to be. It's right here, here's where you're gonna fish, right here, you're gonna fish here, 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 here. Then you're gonna turn around and do it again, you know. And then go back again. The next time you go, fish the same thing. Next time you do, go fish the same thing. And the next time you go somewhere else and start adding and building way up there. Yeah.
Sorry I'm monopolizing all this. So you keep saying fish the same, fish
Mhm.
the same. What happens if you're in a really bad spot that never has fish? How do you know, like, when to
Well, I would never send you a spot.
No, if we're trying to get out, like, we go on Google Maps and we're exploring, and we're trying to find our new holes. I mean, when do you know, like, hey, you know, it's,
Yeah, that's a tough one.
yeah.
You know, it's,
I'm not patient, so if I don't pick something like.
So I'm half an hour and 3 flies, I'm out of there.
Yeah, exactly.
well, all they can do is give you tips. Like let me give you an example. I've been sending out a newsletter since 2014, and I think when the site crashed, we paid this guy to back up our website daily.
Hmm.
Yeah, it didn't happen. So we lost all that data from 2019 on. But anyway, we got it out on hard copy, now it's about that big. So my point is that it's a log. All the fish reports from 2019 to 2024, and a lot of logs in there on all these things. You can get, if you just go to my website, you're going to get a pop-up. It's going to say contact information. Well, you're going to get a newsletter. And I would recommend that you get that because it's the only real-time fish report you're going to get. When that newsletter goes out, that fish report's 24 hours old.
Isn't it hard too for us within, like, you could send us to the spot, but we might not know how to read the water, maybe that's something.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting, let me give you an example of that. That's very good. The current book I'm writing, I'll be done writing it in June, and I had to stop writing another book, meaning I have 2 books that I've had published. One's on the water memories of an old fish hole, memoirs of an old fish hole with me, and there's no pictures. I think it's 28 chapters of fly fishing commentary, but it's all about our local rivers and things, and my 30 years of fishing and stuff. And the other one, it's probably the most popular one. It's called Critical Concepts in Fly Fishing: Mastering the Art of Fly Fishing. Now, the third book is going to come out. I'll be done writing it in June. We'll have it out probably in the fall, and it's called Drop Shot Nymphing: A Definitive Guide. And in that book, I'm giving you the definitive guide to drop shot nymphing. This is it. There's stuff in there that nobody knows about drop shot nymphing.
The nuggets.
Yeah, it is the definitive guide. Having said that, that means nothing. I can do a book on Euro nymphing. I can do a book on check nymphing. I can do a book on strike indicator fishing. I can do a book on every form of nymphing there is, but it all boils down to, and there's a chapter in that book called Reading the Water. You have to be able to read the water. And this whole chapter is on reading the water. Now there's a very well-known fly fisherman in town. I've never met the man. He doesn't live here anymore. And he was doing a seminar at one of the fly fishing shows, and I recommended a couple people go listen to him, and they did, and he was really good. one of the gentlemen has been he's 60 years old, he's been fly fishing his whole life. And I've been working with him because he's new to our area for like 6 months. And he walked up to this gentleman afterwards and he says, well, I've been working with Mike Sandifer. Do you know him? And he said, yeah, I do know him. He's one of the top etymologists, and no one can read a river like Mike. I've never met this man. That's the reputation. So reading the water is something that it's very philosophical. You have to think like a water breather. Yeah. So I've had a lot of work on it tonight. It's something that you can't, I got you next. It's something that you can't learn in a classroom. But there's some beginning things that you need to know, because oftentimes the difference between being successful and not being very successful is you're not reading the water. And it's built around the concept. There's a chapter in this book called Economy of Time. Economy of time dictates that you spend all your time fly fishing the most productive sections of the river. If you're not doing that, you are wasting time. It takes me maybe 3 minutes to turn the engine off, grab my fly rod, and go down the river and start fishing. 20 minutes later, the other people start showing up. Well, that's 20 minutes that they've just taken off. What do you mean taken off? Well, if you tell your partner, I'm going fishing. Well, how long are you going to be gone? 5 hours. Okay? Well, no. 4 hours and 40 minutes. If you're fishing water that there's no trout in it, then you are wasting time and taking time away from that 5 hours. So it's critical that you be able to read a river, find out, understand the best sections to fish, and fish those sections, because economy of time dictates that you do. And your question is, how do I know what those sections are? Well, it becomes a critical study on your part. And you have to understand a couple things. You need to understand a little bit about that deer you're trying to hunt. Yeah, you need to know how they see, how they smell. You need to see how they bed down. You need to know when the rut is in. You need to know where they feed, where they don't feed. You need to know where they're active, where they're not. You need to know everything about that deer that you can possibly know. Very few anglers know anything about a trout. What's the difference? It's the same thing. We're both hunters. We hunt trout, they hunt deer. They know everything about deer. They even go looking for them in the off season. Yeah. But we don't do anything. We don't even understand. So it begins at the very, very beginning. And there's another book I'm writing that's a sequel to On the Water, and it's called The Cerebral. It's called Cerebral. And it's the third part of fly fishing that nobody really knows about. And that's why I'm a teacher of fly fishing.
Okay, so when you talk about reading the water, and you talked about your little time thing, you wanted 3 minutes.
Economy of time.
Yeah. So, when you get to a new body of water you've never fished before, how much time do you actually spend looking at the water, reading it, and saying, okay, well, this is too fast, and this is a big boulder, and this is kind of calm, and how much time do you recommend to us ladies actually studying the water before we just throw our line in?
You're starting to understand what I do for a living. I help anglers become better.
So you can show us how to read the water? Like, okay, this is moving like this,
No,
you want to fish here.
no,
This is kind of like that.
You're missing the point. You have to understand what it is you're going after and how they live. How trout see, how trout live underwater, how they feed at the surface, called a trigger behavior, how they feed at the bottom, which is called a learned behavior. You got to understand how they see color. You got to understand when they're active, when they're not. You got to understand how they live in the river.
So that can tell you where they're going to be at any given time?
It's the beginning.
Okay.
So, for example, everything in fly fishing is logical. 100% of everything in fly fishing is logical. Logical. Therefore, every problem in fly fishing has a logical solution. It's that we don't always find that logical solution. So the antithesis, so the opposite of that, anything that's illogical is incorrect. So what that means about reading the water is you have to think like a fish, and you have to think logically where fish would be and where they won't be. It's no secret that fish will not be in any water that's flat. Period. There's absolutely never a reason for you to fish in flat water because there's no trout there. The only time you fish flat water is when you see fish feeding. That's oxymoronic in the sense I just said there's no fish there. But they're there when they're feeding.
Because they see the.
They're coming from where they are to where they feed. And the reason they come to flat water is because that insect's now moving 5 miles an hour. That insect is now moving very slowly, and it becomes very easy to feed, and they become very, very cautious on their feeding. So they're very aggressive in the current, soft weather. But if there's no hatch, there's no fish there. Because they don't live there. And they don't live there because of this. They get picked off there. They get eaten there. There's no place to hide. There's no food. There's no safety of current. There's a very, very famous quote from the movie A River Runs Through. At the very end, Paul gets flushed down the river, and he's holding his fly rod. He's got this giant fish, and his brother and dad are running down the river after him, and he finally catch up to him, and he stands in the river. He's holding his trout. He says, "In 3 more years, I'll be able to think like a trout." There's a point there. That was written by Norman MacLean in 1933. You have to think like a trout. You have to understand trout. When God created this earth, He created it in 7 days. Am I not right? Because that's what it says in the Bible. Certainly I was raised on that. 7 days. On the 7th day, He rested. Well, let me tell you something. Last I heard, there were 9 planets in our solar system. Right? In our solar system. In our galaxy, the Milky Way, there's billions of solar systems. And there's billions of galaxies out there. You think God needs 7 days to make a planet? He just took a water planet, an earth planet, and went, done. That's the planet Earth. 70% of this planet is water. 30% is land. We're a minority. You have to put yourself in a position where you start understanding what it is you're going after. And that's the cerebral part of life. Understand what they eat. Understand the characteristics and the behavior of what they eat. And getting back to your question about when these hatches are and everything, well, there's no secret there. They've been at 1 o'clock on the Malad River for the last 1 billion years. There's no secrets. It's just you learning when all that, what, via a hatch chart, what insects are on there. There's logical ways to do things in fly fishing. I always say fly fishing was one of the most simplest hobbies on God's earth. It's a very simple thing. I didn't say it was easy, I just said it was simple. It's simple if you really think about it. It's very, very simple. Very, very logical. There's only 2 things in fly fishing. Only 2. And this is answering your question. There's only 2 things in fly fishing you need to be good at. No other sport or hobby or game exists in the world today where you only need to be good at 2 things. Only fly fishing. So what I'm telling you, and I'll close on this, if you want to be good at fly fishing, you only need to be good at 2 things. There's nothing as simple as that.
And I'm not good at either one of them.
Well, then you need to get good at it. That's the simplicity of fly fishing.
Okay, number 1 is tell me what are those.
Number 1 is you have to be able to perfect the fly rod.
Yeah.
Well, if you're not perfecting the fly rod, that you should make that your lifelong decision to do that.
Okay.
And number 2 is you need to know what fly to put on. You need to know everything about flies. So, what separates a non-fisher? What separates a non-fly fisher from a fly fisher? The fly and the fly rod. The fly and the fly rod. What separates a fly fisher from a really good fly fisher? The fly and the fly rod. What separates a really good fly fisher from an exceptional fly fisher? Any guesses?
Same thing.
The fly and the fly rod. What separates an exceptional fly fisher from a master? Any guesses?
Same thing.
The fly and the fly rod. What separates a person who has never fly fished before in their life from a master fly fisher? The fly and the fly rod. That's it. That's simple. I didn't say it was easy. So, what's the point, Mike? The point is you need to get good at those two things. You need to get good at those two things. You need to understand etymology. It's easy. There's only 4 bugs trout eat. That's it. So repeat after me. Blue.
Wing.
No. Repeat after me. Blue.
Blue.
Red.
Red.
Green.
Green.
And yellow.
And yellow.
Say it again.
Blue, red, green, yellow.
Okay. Say mayfly,
Mayfly.
caddisfly,
Caddisfly.
stonefly,
Stonefly.
midge.
Fish.
Say it all together.
Caddisfly, stonefly, midge.
There's only 4 bugs. So when you see a fish rising, you've never been to a river in your life, and you see a fish rise, what did that fish eat? One of those 4 things. That's the simplicity. So what I'm saying to say is what separates, if you and I are fishing together, and I'm catching all the fish, and you're catching none, it can only be one of 2 things, right?
Right.
I'm using a fly that you don't have. So I give you that fly, and you can't catch those fish. What do you think the reason why you can't catch that fish?
Because I can't cast
You
the
can't
same
cast
line.
it. You can't put that fly where it needs to go. That's the simplicity of fly. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, ladies anyway. There's a reason why I quietly want to not be involved in the commercial end or publicly in fly fishing. Because they want you to believe it's hard. They want you to believe it's mysterious. I just told you it's all logical. There's not a single thing that I teach that I created. There's not a single thing that I ever use my opinion. Everything I teach is the core foundation, fundamental concepts of fly fishing that just are not being taught on the commercial end.
So what do you recommend, like, for practicing to improving I understand you go to the river and you look to see what's hatching and you turn over rocks to match the hatch. But short of, like, how many hours a day is it going to take to actually perfect?
You need to practice no less than 5 minutes and no more than 10 minutes. Period.
Every day?
Once a day,
No more than 10 minutes, but no less than 5
10 times a day.
Okay.
Meaning you can't practice less than 5 minutes. You cannot practice more than 10 minutes because from that point on, you're just improving a bad habit.
Oh.
So you can fish between 5 and 10. You can practice 5 and 10 minutes a day, okay, as often as you like. After that 10 minutes, set the rod down, go do something else. Because you're just wasting your time. You're not performing. See, casting is really simple. We're all topic now, but this is good for you. When you look at a dry, there's 2 types of rods. There's a dry fly rod and a nymph rod, okay? We talk about dry fly fishing. A dry fly rod has been fundamentally engineered and designed to be worked in 2 ways, okay? This is the simplicity of fly fishing. This is what the commercial industry doesn't want you to know. Listen, what are the 2 things you need to be good at in fly fishing? Fly and a fly rod. There's only 2 things you need to do in making a perfect cast. A dry fly rod is manufactured and engineered to be worked in 2 ways. There's a reason I'm blacklisted in this business. Seriously. That rod is designed to be worked at an angle. There it is. Let's do that. Y'all can do that, can't you? Mm-hmm. There it is. That rod has to be worked at that angle. Mm-hmm. 12 o'clock is the preferred position. So at 12 o'clock, I'm where? The right angle. So if you watch me cast, for the last 60 years, my rod has always stopped my hands always stop at the right angle. The forward cast is like that. So make a finger. Ready? Go forward. Why is everybody pointing down? I want you to watch my hand. Watch my hand. Watch this. There.
Yeah.
So let me give you another example. You look at your eyes and you look up. You want to cast up. So the rod's always pointing up. So you can teach yourself how to cast with your finger. Done right, you'll make that angle. Lefty calls it like playing cowboys and Indians. Pow, pow. So the wrist is where all the effort goes into. Wrist does everything. So it's a salute. Watch. It's a salute. Watch me. It's a military salute. This is not a salute. This is not it. So it's a salute. Lefty calls it like playing cowboys and Indians. It's a pow. It's a lefty crack. I'm not teaching you anything that I did. That's lefty. Yeah. Well, there's a lot more to it.
Can you explain the terminology you use for the new people when you were talking about nymphing? Because I don't think, we understand.
Yeah, there's only one. Let me put it this way. I'll make it easy for you. There's only one way to dry fly fish. Okay. There's only one way to dry fly cast. There's only one way. How I do it here is how they do it in Patagonia. How I do it here is how they do it in the East Coast. How I do it here is, and how you do it here is how they do it in China. There's only one way to dry fly fish. Odds are they're using the same insects, and same flies. Some variant of that. There's only one way to do it. Because science dictates this is how you do it. It's not anything else. Science dictates that this is how you do it. These are the bugs you use. You use tippet. You want to tie that knot, and you want to use an emerger and this and that. And you want to use a nice lightweight rod, really light line, so that you're moving it in the air with each person's preference. About your question is about nymph fishing. There's nothing scientific about nymph fishing. There's 25 different ways to do it.
The difference between nymph fishing and dry fly
Okay,
fishing.
very simple.
That's what
Yeah.
they-
Okay, so that's a good question. It's a very good question. I've had it a million times. So if you see me fly fishing on the river, keep an eye on the time.
Yeah, we have about 5 minutes.
Okay, if you see me fly fishing on a river, right? You haven't seen my fly rod. What am I doing? I'm fly fishing, right? Right? You would all say that. You would say I'm fly fishing.
Sure.
However, I'm doing one of two types of fly fishing. Okay? And I'll leave you with this mystery because I have to close. So I'm either dry fly fishing or I'm nymph fishing. I'm trying to help you here. Okay? So I'm either dry fly fishing or nymph. So nymphing is bottom fishing.
So it's under the water.
Underwater on the bottom. If you're not on the bottom, you're not catching fish. Surface fishing is on the surface. So I'm either surface fishing, or we call dry fly fishing, or I'm nymph fishing, or what we would call bottom fishing. Okay? I'm doing one of those two things. Now, Christine's going, how did I heard all this stuff? They are opposites. They're polar opposites. They bounce off each other. Meaning, dry fly fishing is like sharks. Nymph fishing is like grizzly bears. Seriously. Being very, very serious. You cannot draw any comparisons from a shark to a grizzly bear. One breathes water, one breathes air. What they have in common is they eat meat.
Right, they'll both eat you.
They eat meat. In our case, we would be flies. But you cannot draw any kind of comparison. They're totally opposites. So you need a dry fly rod and you need a nymph rod.
How come you can't use one fly rod for both?
Okay. Let me explain the logic. Okay. This is why I'm blacklisted. I say you need 2 fly rods. Okay. Can you play golf with
No,
one?
I can't play golf.
No. Hear me out. Can you play golf with one club?
No.
No, you can't. As a matter of fact, you're allowed 14. I was watching tournament bass fishing the other day, and the guy had 20 rods on this part of the boat and 20 rods on that part of the boat. And he would pick up this rod and use that, pick up a rod and that. You think Bass fishermen only have one rod. But there's a general consensus in fly fishing, you only need one rod. What are the two things that catch fish? Fly rod and flies, right? That means from a financial or budget standpoint, the only two things in fly fishing should be the two things you're buying lots of.
Why not just have two reels? Sorry, Mike.
Okay.
I'm not buying another rod, just a nitput.
Nor am I telling you to. You have to understand, none of this stuff is my opinion.
Yeah.
None of this stuff I created. You can take your driver and putt with it.
And what?
Putt with it. I'm talking golf. And you can take your putter and you can drive with it.
Definitely.
Yeah, you can do that. So to answer your question, yes, you can do that. You absolutely can do that.
How do you know what rod you had if you've had them for a couple of years?
Mine's like 9 foot 5 weight, that's all I know.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if it's dry fly or nymphing. So what's the difference?
You're starting to get into the nuts and bolts, and I got a few minutes. But let me tell you this: if I'm going, I want to get back to you. Okay, when I'm dry fly fishing, I don't choose a rod. I choose a weight line. I want a light line because why? The difference between dry fly fishing and nymph fishing, outside the obvious, is dry fly fishing is up in the air. It's a symphony. The lighter I can get that line, the easier it is for me to do
So
it.
would you go with a 2-weight line?
No, I would probably go with a 4-weight.
4-weight? Okay.
But it can be done with a 5-weight. It's an individual thing. The point I'm trying to say is it's not about the rod, it's about the line you choose to use. For me, a 4-weight is the lightest thing on earth. I can get it to do anything I want to. When I go to a 5-weight, it gets heavier and harder.
Okay, so would you use a weight forward line? Or?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
And a nymphing rod, I would just use plain.
But for the new girls who
Who don't know what you're talking
don't
about?
want to put a lot of money in, you can get an interchangeable spool. So you can use the same rod
Yes.
for surface and for deep.
And that's a
It's just
well-known
an
concept.
interchangeable spool.
Yes, and you're absolutely 100% right. That is a well-known concept. Well-known concept. So in essence, you could, if I had to play golf with one club, I can't use a putter, I can't use a driver, I have to use one club.
What will it be?
I would be a 3 hybrid.
3 iron.
See, now I could drive with the 3 hybrid, I could putt with a 3 hybrid, and I could play mid-fairway with a 3 hybrid. But I get 14, so I don't have to do that. In your case, a 5-weight, say a 9-foot 5-weight with an interchangeable spool.
4 weights.
So,
Yeah.
4 weight rod.
so
Okay.
you would have a 9-foot rod and you would just interchange
2 minutes.
your reels.
Yes, I would use a 5-weight rod and have a 5-weight dry fly leader on it and a 5-weight line with a nymphing leader. Because one's grizzly bears and one's a shark. So if you're talking leaders to me, I have to say to you, are you talking dry fly fishing or are you talking nymphing? See, you
So
can't talk
nymphing
about.
is heavier, dry is lighter.
Well, it's
One
just-
is a 5, one is a 4.
Yeah,
Would it be good to say to everybody, like, master one thing before you move on to the next? If you do
Absolutely.
dry fly, stick with that rod, don't even
Yeah.
worry about all the other stuff
Yes.
fishing, and just do that. and
Absolutely.
go to the links or
absolutely.
reverse.
When you get the dry fly rod, because I almost probably 85 to 90% of what I do is dry fly fishing. So, and you can do the same thing, and you get that dry fly rod, because dry fly fishing is the most complicated. Nymphing is easy. So you master the one that's complicated first, and then get it. Nymphing rods are really cheap.
Now I start with the easier one first. And then
Thank you for having me.